It is day 234 of Putin's war on Ukraine with Russia, and big developments are happening over in Ukraine. And we go now to our correspondent, Shelby Wilder, who is reporting live from Lviv. Shelby, obviously so much rhetoric happening, especially from Russia, big concerns. The world is watching. What is the latest from there on the ground?
Hi, it's great to be with you. Well, as you said, there's a lot to unfold here from Ukraine. We saw Russia this week launching its largest attack on Ukraine since the war began on February 24th. Just in the last 24 hours alone, everywhere in Ukraine, except for occupied Crimea, has been under air raid sirens at one point or another. And again, starting on Monday, we saw attacks carried out across Ukraine on numerous cities and villages. And really, just to give an example of what we've been going through here, I've been based in Lviv, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week, residents there have been woken up by air raid sirens, incoming missiles, and being told to proceed to shelters until this let up. Now, following this series of attacks this week, we know that over 36 people have been killed and scores of civilians are wounded. There have also been strikes on critical infrastructure, which has led to rolling blackouts across Ukraine. And that's really, again, because this week we saw Ukraine's air defenses just overwhelmed by Russian missiles and drone strikes. And what this has really shown in the aftermath of these attacks this week, what didn't benefit Russia, is that it actually bolstered support from the West, from Ukraine's allies. We saw President Zelensky earlier this week make pleas for additional air defense systems, saying that Ukraine needed it to better defend itself. And so at the end of this week, we did see different EU members, NATO members, stepping up to meet this challenge. We know that the U.S. announced that it would be supplying an additional $725 million with a security assistance package for Ukraine. And now what we really know from this bombardment by Russia is that, yes, they did hit critical infrastructure here and some military targets. They specifically hit civilian targets, but it hasn't actually changed the course of this war in regards to Ukraine's military, which is pushing on with their offensive in the east and the south of the country, which we've seen in certain places has led to Russian forces pulling back. And just an example of that is that we saw on Thursday in the occupied territory of Kherson that the Russian-backed governor there called on Moscow to support them in carrying out evacuations of residents in Kherson. What this really signifies, and it is a significant development, is that the governor there is concerned as Ukraine's military is approaching the city of Kherson, and that they are now telling residents in this occupied territory to go back to Russia until this fighting dies down. But really, we have to just sort of reframe here that these territories, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, the east of Ukraine, have now been annexed and absorbed by the Russian Federation, at least in Putin's eyes. But in reality, Russian forces no longer fully control these four territories. We know that that move by Russia received global condemnation. It was one that's not only been ignored by President Zelensky and Kyiv, but also by the West. We even saw yesterday at the UN General Assembly, the majority of members voted to condemn this move by Russia, not acknowledging their illegal annexation. But what we're going to follow here in the course of the next week is this battle for Kherson as it unfolds, as Ukraine's military pushes forward and tries to retake this symbolic and strategic city.
That is stunning, Shelby, that the Russians are basically, or at least those that are in that occupied territory, saying go back home. What about also, though, the rhetoric coming from Vladimir Putin? Because there has been just such really strong rhetoric, still dangling the nuclear option. And, of course, we have the West now coming back and saying, if you do that, you will be annihilated. What is the sense really quickly there on the ground?
Yes, I think that there's increasing, obviously, tensions here on the ground. I mean, Ukrainians are not going to yield. They're not going to bend to Putin's continued nuclear threats. And really, we've been hearing more of this saber-rattling rhetoric coming from Putin as he's putting himself further into a corner and isolating himself. And also because Russia has been having these increasing setbacks on the battlefield, which is really dealing a humiliating blow to the Kremlin and to Putin's war here in Ukraine. Of course, the fear is that if Putin is to lose lose the city of Kherson, this would be such a significant development and setback for him that many people here fear, and I know along within the West, that Putin could potentially use a tactical nuke on the battlefield here in Ukraine as he is losing ground. So this is something that we are following, but of course there is increasing tension not only here but globally as we again see these threats coming from Putin in regards to nuclear rhetoric.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, lots of developments. Shelby, thank you very much there in Lviv, Ukraine. Thank you.
Do you think Putin is a rational actor?
I think he is a rational actor who's miscalculated significantly. I think he thought he was going to be welcomed with open arms, that this has been the home of Mother Russia in Kyiv, and he was going to be welcomed, and I think he just totally miscalculated.
And that was President Biden describing Russian President Vladimir Putin, believe it or not, as rational, but saying he miscalculated when invading Ukraine. Brigadier General Blaine Holt joins us now. And General, first off, what's your reaction when you see, Biden saying that he was, quote, a rational individual, referring to Putin?
Well, good morning to you, Rita. It's very confusing messaging, really, because on the one side you say, well, Vladimir Putin's a rational actor. It's a miscalculation. This is a man who's threatening the West, actually the world, with nuclear weapons. We better hope he's rational, because if he's irrational, how close are we to that place? Now, President Biden himself talked about Armageddon as a means of fundraising, but our nuclear posture hasn't changed, to my knowledge, that we're not raising a status to match that, and actually Admiral Kirby walked that back. So the messaging is kind of inconsistent with where we're really at. What I believe is that Russia is losing tactically on the ground in Ukraine, but they're winning strategically on the global level because of what we see happening in Europe with disintegration of unity, the energy and food crisis, and the worry that we're going to have a West that's sharply divided as the temperature drops.
You brought up the point that it was President Biden who brought up the Armageddon word, and you're right. It was so odd that it was at a Democratic National fundraiser. How did that help or not help militarily where we are right now?
It doesn't help at all. In fact, why would you fundraise on something that is born out of American weakness that starts 18 months ago with a blown Alaskan summit with the Chinese? We're not doing well there. Then we go on to the greatest tragedy after 20 plus years of war, the fall of Kabul, which transmits weakness all over the place and entices Putin to get after his global goals. And we don't deter a deterrable war. For a year, we saw the troops massing on Ukraine. So I don't know why you'd want to raise money on that, because the conditions are present, because American leadership and foreign policy is really in trouble.
General Holt, I want to get your reaction to what our reporter Shelby Wilder was just saying there on the ground also in the report, because I thought that was really significant, where she said that in the occupied area of Kherson, now there are reports that some of the local representatives there are saying go back to Russia because they're worried what's going to happen when the Ukrainian military gets there. That's a great sign, obviously, for Ukraine. How big of a development is it that they appear to be a threat to the Russian military and in some of these Russian occupied areas? That's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. It's also been present for years, and I'm very happy to see that it's finally being reported. The conventional wisdom is about the Russian separatist who just loves Mother Russia, and can't these oblasts go back to Russia? But nothing could be further from the truth. It's a very, very mixed bag on the ground. And the Russian army has created just as many crimes in these so-called Russian oblasts as they have in the Ukrainian countryside. And these people want them gone, whether they speak Russian or Ukrainian.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a very promising sign that they seem to be on the run. General Holt, really great to get you on. We always love having you here.
Great to be with you. Happy Saturday to you.
Thank you. You too, General.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the
truth.
No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They
Let me decide.
Newsmax.
Real news
For real people.